Alpin Manor is an idyllic manor house hidden in the most tranquil of valleys in the Cotswolds. When I married into the British aristocracy, it was the start of a wonderfully exciting journey. But it was also a little daunting. I became a Viscountess, and for an American girl from a small town outside Chicago, that was quite a shock.
I live with my husband Luke, heir to the Earl of Sandwich, and our family at Mapperton House in Dorset.
Living in a place like this is a joy, but also a challenge. And every day we're aware that we're preserving a very special part of Britain's heritage. Mapperton has opened up an extraordinary new world for me, and I can't wait to share it with you all.
So if you love castles and manors and stately homes as much as I do, please join this American Viscountess as I journey into the British countryside in search of some of Britain's finest historic houses.
Welcome to the drawing room here at Mapperton. Mapperton has been voted the nation's finest manor house, but every manor house I visit is stunning. I love the atmosphere and intimacy of these houses, but what historically makes a manor house a manor house? So to explore this and much more, I visited Alpin Manor, a treasure of the Cotswolds and the most beautiful home to Sir Nicholas and Lady Manda. Hello. How are you? So nice to see you. So nice to see you. Hello. How are you? Cool. Lovely to see you. Wow. Goodness me. I had to really pause as I was coming up, looking at just the lovely view that you have here.
So we have these steep hills. A lot of the Cotswolds are rather a plateau and featureless, but here it's very dramatic landscape.
Yes.
And this we call the Great Hall. Not all that great, but
Yes,
it is the centre of the house. And what seems odd to some people is you come in at the lower end of the hall, off centre. In early houses, they have this thing called a screens passage, which is where that beam stops short, or the beams with this big bearing beam. So, and that seems to date back to almost like people living with their cattle in a house, you know,
Right.
a long house and the animals on one end, and then and then in the Middle Ages, maybe the Lord of the Manor was here with tenants and they slept on the floor.
Right.
And then gradually our modern ideas of houses develop where you have private parlours, apartments, drawing rooms with drawing rooms at the upper end of the hall. And the lower end of the hall was where all the kitchens, service rooms, buttery, pantry, funny
Right.
names like that, that end. And here this elegant door case was built in 1719, so hundreds of years later. You've got an idea, it says in the accounts, to two Italian pillars.
Oh my goodness.
So you get the Renaissance coming to the Cotswolds about 250 years after it had finished in Italy or something.
If we were to date the Great Hall here, what would we put this at?
Well, it's interesting that the walls are probably from the what you can call the medieval house, and then the ceiling was put in exactly 1521, because you can date the beams by drilling into them, and then you take the profiles of the tree rings and match them up with others in the laboratory under a microscope. So it was probably built within a year or two of 1521, 1523, and that marries in with literally the marriages of the family. We knew that there was a marriage then, and they would come in perhaps a bit of a dowry from the wife.
Right, yes.
And then sort of let's upgrade the house a little bit. And it's been untouched since, really. It adapts very well to our living today. I was saying that we arrived here just with one child, 2 dogs, 2 goats, and a baby. But now we can't fit around the dining room table because we extend it when the whole
We'll
family's
have to
here.
have
We've got
2 like that.
28 people.
Right.
So we get another one in.
Including
Yeah.
babies. We got
Right, fantastic. But of course, then this is then still a very much used and loved
Very
room
much,
in the
yeah.
house.
Yeah.
and very adaptable.
Probably the most,
yeah.
apart from the kitchen, the most used room in the house
Right.
when we're all together.
Fantastic.
And I was saying how they probably had the court leet of the manor here as well. They were official places, these manor houses, and the lord of the manor would have presided over a little court,
Right.
trying all his
Just
servants
right
and
here.
Just,
Incredible.
Just right here through the ages.
Alpin is the most astonishing survival of the medieval manor house. In the 1920s, it was sold for the first time in 800 years to visionary architect and follower of the arts and crafts movement, Norman Jewson.
And what was rather nice is our family were tied up with the arts and crafts movement rather, and built these big houses in the 19th century which expressed that aesthetic.
Yes.
And we got to know him in his old age. So when he died, age 92, he left various things that he wanted the house to have, like his settle that had belonged to Ernest Jimson, his master, and various sconces around the fireplace. And the plasterwork is very typical. Can you see
Yes,
the
of course,
reveals
yes.
of the windows?
Yes.
They did these little just sort of touch of its own time.
Each room at Owlpen has its very own special atmosphere, which echoes the historic changes made by each generation.
The house is very well documented for a house of this scale, so we know exactly how much the hinges cost and nails and all the,
Fantastic.
and it cost £2.13 and sixpence to panel this room in 1719.
Well,
which is quite a
yeah,
lot of
but
money.
you think what that is today?
Yes,
Today it's a lot
exactly.
of money.
Yes,
You
it is a lot of money back
Yeah.
then, but it's beautifully paneled.
This is the original painting above in the little shell house. And when we came here, everything in the house was painted white, gloss white and lime wash.
Right.
And we gradually we painted this, taking colours from scraping under the panelling, and you find little traces of the old paint and this in the shell head.
And
So we did this in the mid-70s. We came here.
right, right.
But it's
How
never been-
wonderful. It's beautiful. And I love it that you just have dotted all around lots of family pictures, because there are, how many are there of you now? You've mentioned you
I
have,
think we've got
how many
five-
children?
5 children. who are
Right.
at a
We are
certain age
28
and
altogether, so
and they've all
16
got-
grandchildren. I know.
on
Well,
average.
you know, you with your 4 children might get that
I know. That's right. I could, yeah.
joy to come.
Exactly. Well, wonderful. This is absolutely stunning just to see just the difference between, I can see a real difference and feel a real difference between, of course, the Great Hall and that period, that 200-year
Yes.
period. Yes, stepping
Yes.
into here, just one step in, and I'm in a different, 200 years later. And just as is the case here at Mapperton, over time, the rooms take on new life. Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So tell me, what do you use this room for now? And then what was it used before?
Well, I mean, family dances in here.
Roll back the carpet.
Yeah, yeah, literally.
28 of you.
Yeah. New Year's Eve, everybody starts dancing.
Oh my.
Little ones too. You know,
Little ones, yes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yes, all your grandchildren.
Yeah.
How wonderful. So this is your dance room, let's say, but really, but what was this?
We call it the oak parlour
Right.
for obvious reasons. This is oak, It's got the date stone outside, 1616, so we know it was remodelled, probably where the medieval early parlour, solar, as they call it then, would have been. And it's got the bay window, and you can see all the mullions are at drunken angles.
Yes.
And we had a friend staying in the room above, is essentially the spare room, and he couldn't draw the curtains one evening, and when the handyman came up the following morning, we found that it's only being held into the rest of the house by cobwebs and friction and
Literally,
hope.
literally.
And it's been marching away at the rate your fingernails grow from the rest of the house. And you can see, for instance, my great-aunt's bell pull thing. There are no servants to summon now. By the time, with a 5-foot drop, it's 3 inches away from the wall, just at the bottom there. So all walls in the house are at angles.
The Manda's joy in the house was so lovely to see. Alpin has such a wonderful and warm feeling. It is, of course, a home with family at the heart, and the Mandas were the first family since the 18th century to raise their children at Alpin.
On a slightly overcast spring morning, but determined to embrace the British weather, we sat in the stunning garden where I met Hugo Manda, who is guiding the manor into the future.
You've got this idyllic Cotswolds Manor house, and you decided it's also a business, right? So you've come on board, Hugo, in one sense. And when did you decide to open it up to the public, or had it always been like that?
Well, our predecessors got grants to do roofs and things, and the condition, strings attached, were to open the house in a very modest way on Fridays in June and July. And they said, kind of, we'd like you to try carrying it on. And then we started having lots of children and it became impossible, and we closed the house, really. And at that time, the microeconomy of the farm, the estate, was much more viable than today. Today, it's just a question of almost keeping it there.
Yes.
But it doesn't really contribute in any way. So we evolved towards it, I suppose. We started opening the house bit by bit, and since then, it's evolved more towards events, weddings. We have non-commercial things like concerts.
I think my father's being very modest. I mean, one of the important things is that my mother is an extremely good cook, and we had all this holiday accommodation, and you need more than just houses, and so they opened a restaurant in the barn, and my mother was the cook for 20 years there. And so we used to have the house open to the public, and we did cream teas and lunches, and then everyone from the holiday cottage would come and have dinner, and so it was busy all the time. And we all used to work in the tea room, serving teas and washing up and all the rest of it when we were children, and we were room guides in the house when we weren't doing that. So we all sort of, I mean, for example, on an Easter Sunday, we would all go and do lunch and then do the house opening, and after that we do the Easter egg hunt when everyone had left. And so it was very much a sort of family-run little business which was trying to find ways to survive, while also not putting so much pressure on the house that the whole place fell down. And that worked for a while, but then it came to a point where actually, I don't know how it is in Mapperton, but Alpin's almost too small for that sort of business to be viable. So we sort of pivoted into private events, many of which are weddings, because this place, as my father was saying, it lends itself to private parties, and the farm is basically unviable now, but it means that you've got this great sort of shelter belt. People can come here and be private and have a lovely weekend here, and have a great time in the barns and the gardens, and that works really well, and use all the accommodation. So it's about finding ways to allow us still to live here, while not sort of losing the atmosphere and the heart of the place, and maintaining this sense of a lived-in house at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. We've had to really continue to evolve from the time that really the historic house many of them had to open up their doors,
Yeah.
especially after the Second World War. You know, that's when we started to see this trend of historic houses opening their doors to the public so that they could still live, but live in a different way, but also keeping the integrity of the house. And as you mentioned, it is, of course, finding that right balance of how many visitors do I want in my house because of the wear and tear. And that's what I think a lot of people don't necessarily understand, that having thousands of visitors in your house is wear and tear, and then that's another repair bill somewhere further down the line. And how are you going to pay for that repair bill? Well, you have to figure out and evolve and come up with different ideas. And as you've just, so beautifully put, it's sort of looking at what works, what has worked, what's not working, and shifting and evolving.
But the other thing is that the house is also the focus of a community and has always been, and it provides jobs and a sort of dynamic to the whole,
Yes.
wider economy. And the cottages were partly a thing of maintaining these old buildings, which had no function. They were part of the feudal estate when staff lived in them, or some were just derelict, some didn't really exist. And so we did up these historic buildings.
Nowhere else better describes how a manor house was at the center of a community in centuries gone by. And today, the historic elements of manor life at Alpin have provided all important business opportunities.
In England, you have castles, you have stately homes, you have halls, you have courts, and then you have this manor house.
Yeah.
And what exactly makes up a manor house, the elements around
Well, I
the
think
manor
it's a very
house?
ancient thing. With the Norman conquest, it was the Roman villa, and it was actually a unit of administration. This is what's called a gentry manor, which meant that the lord of the manor lived here. The feudal overlords were in the big castle nearby, Berkeley Castle, and they had their own court. There was a manorial court, and we have the court rolls telling of fines that they administered, and if somebody inherited a tenant farm, they had to pay what was called heriot to the lord of the manor, which was like the best cow or something like that. He'd say, sorry, I'll have that, and all that kind of thing. So it was a legal system as well as just a name. And I think in this part of Gloucestershire, the manor house is often called a court. And this, I don't know whether people really, the manor was the legal thing, really.
Right,
And then
right.
here we have the church, the barn, the mill, the open fields on the tops of the hills, and the cottages. All the elements of the manor are here, including the courthouse, which is a little building on the west side.
I think the thing that makes Alpin also interesting in that context is that if you stand on the lawn looking at the house, you can see the courthouse, the mill house, the farm. Everything that makes the manor is still here. The church, and also in business terms, the barn. And of course,
Yes.
barns, whereas before they were just places where you would use it for threshing or storage. Now they're crucially important to these sorts of places because they are events venues,
Yes.
and you can repurpose them as something completely different. And now they're great for, if you think of the wassails people used to have in barns, now it's weddings and discos
Yes.
and conferences and all that sort of thing. So they serve a modern purpose. So the traditional medieval manor has sort of morphed into something completely different, but it still looks very similar to how it would have been 500 years ago,
Right.
which is quite fun.
That is perfectly put.
And I think also it's expressed in the architecture. So this isn't, although it's described as a tiny manor house, a farmhouse wouldn't have been allowed to have, say, a bay window or an oriel window. That was definitely expression of status.
Yes.
And your coat of arms on the front of the house. You see, the farmers didn't have coats
Yes.
of arms. It was expressed itself as, it's not a huge house by country house standards, but it was definitely the house
Right, yes.
for
And
miles around.
Yeah, and it has the markings on it to say, I am, a powerful house.
Relatively.
Exactly.
Alpin Manor, just like Mapperton and most historic homes I visit across the UK, blends history and the ever-present need to be commercial. So Hugo showed me the redevelopment of the barn.
So this is the cider barn,
Oh my goodness.
which is a sort of misnomer. I mean, but in medieval terms, this was essentially the warehouse of the estate.
Right.
So it was the threshing room. There would be an open wagon porch there. You'd have a through draft, and they'd bring all their produce in there, especially the wheat, and they would thresh it and produce their grain. So that was the first purpose of it. And we know from the dendrochronology dating that these cruck trusses were put up in 1446.
Oh my goodness. This family is very good at taking timber and dating it. Incredible.
Well, the great thing is that they had to have been building in green oak with these structures, so it must have been built in that year, or maybe 1447. So
right.
It's a pretty hard date in
Yes.
terms of the sort of how you would build a timber frame structure. There would have been, you can see here, these sort of cross braces going across, so people
Yes.
were much smaller then. It would all be quite squat.
Oh yes, I see, yes. And it's obviously survived.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what's incredible, that it has survived since 1440.
Well, I think one of the reasons it survived is because, yes, it was a threshing barn, but then it became something else.
Right.
So behind us over there, you've got the cider press, which was probably built in the sort of mid-18th century, 1730s kind of thing. And what you've got here is you've got two vertical oak structures.
Is this the original cider press?
This is the original cider
What?
press, where they used to build,
Oh my
used to
goodness.
produce all the cider.
So this survived as well.
Yeah.
This is incredible.
The coolest thing about it for me is this wonderful upright here. It's almost
Yeah.
like you can see they'd built the cider press and they were planing off the bark.
Yes.
And you almost thought halfway they just stopped and thought, oh, to hell with this, let's just go and make some cider, we're done, sort of thing. But I mean, for me as a child, this was our playroom on wet days.
Right.
So there used to be a trough in the middle where you'd pour all your apples in and create the pulp and then load it onto the press and press the apples and all that sort of thing. But we would ride our bikes in here and we'd have our slide in here and our climbing frame, and we'd just mess about when we couldn't go into the fields and climb trees.
Right.
And things. So we had no idea what this thing even was. You know, it was just a sort of an annoying
Yes.
piece of wood in the corner that got in the way of our games. And then slowly you come to ask the question, what actually is that thing? What's it doing here? And it becomes, more interesting.
Yes.
So that's why we call the place the cider barn, because you've got this huge galumphing pre-industrial machine sort of squatting in the corner.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. That is, I mean, it's fascinating just to see this. And I think especially as me as an American, when I sort of visualize a lot of the buildings here in England, I like to see the original timber
Sure.
roofs and ceilings. I love them. It's wonderful.
Yeah, and
here it
especially when
is.
they remain unchanged. Nothing
Yes.
has really been done to it. You've still got the dovecote up there. You've still got the wagon porch, which is now the office. You've got the old apple loft, which is a bridal suite. Everything is it exists in its present form.
Right,
But the
but
floor level's been raised a bit, and there's a wooden floor, and that's kind of it, really. Everything is...
Right, so you've mentioned bridal suite. So obviously this has now evolved into a wedding space.
Oh
Is that
yeah, for
right?
weddings,
Yes.
this is the dance floor and the bar. This is the party room now. Yeah.
So, but you've taken over a little bit of the running of Alpin, is that right?
That's right, yeah.
So how did that start and when did that start and kind of what's your vision?
So that was about 2016.
Okay, not that long ago.
And we were getting a sense that historic house tours and cream teas and everything weren't really enough for us. So we felt that weddings were, and private events as well,
Right.
were one of the ways that we could carry on. Now, the great thing about Owlpen is that it's a valley in its own right, so it's very private.
Yeah.
So you've got a
Yeah.
party space in the middle, you've got accommodation everywhere, people can hire it for the weekend and they can call it theirs and have a good time in the Cotswolds. And also we throw lots of parties of our own, we love throwing parties,
Yes.
so it sort of made sense. You kind of do what you know, don't you?
This is so true.
So we do parties.
So when was this converted, this space, into this dance floor that we see today?
Well, this was actually done in the 90s for my parents. They had it as their restaurant. And it was a licensed restaurant for 20 years. And then when we started doing weddings, it was too small for
Right.
the footfall. So we had marquees next to it, and that was obviously not sustainable. So we decided to sort of to scale up, as it were. We
Right.
decided we needed another space for dining so that you could have two areas.
Yes.
One where you could have a dance and a drink, the other place where you could sit down and eat. So that's
right?
the barn next door, which we built in 2020. Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So this is the pole barn.
Wow. So
Very-
this is an extension, Hugo, is that right?
That's right, yeah. So traditionally, the door would have been about this level. There would have been a bank going up there, and you would chuck in all your apples and grain through the much higher level door.
Right.
We put the level down and then created this enormous space by moving a lot of earth to flatten it out.
Right.
And then we could build this structure on it.
Honestly, it's really sympathetically done. You know, it fits when you come from the cider press room into here.
Well, it was my father's idea. He said, if you're going to build a barn, we need an architect so that they understand old buildings and they can get a sense of how you chime with the old and the
Yes,
new. You've got
yes.
a sense of continuity and change. And he also said we need to use our own materials, so it's as low impact, sustainable as possible.
Right.
And we had larch up in one of our woods. This is all larch that all
larch.
comes from our woods.
How many weddings are you doing a year then?
So we're doing between sort of 60 and 75.
That's a lot.
it's-
yeah.
it's
I mean,
a
that's
lot.
more than one a week.
But the thing
If
is,
it-
when you're employing lots of people, you need to keep them busy. That's the important thing.
exactly. That's exactly right.
So 2 a week, basically.
2 a week.
And that way we can do it in such a way that we can still live here, we can still enjoy the estate for ourselves. It's not turning into some sort of factory,
Right.
and people can also still enjoy a bit of peace. They can arrive the day
Yes.
before, they can decorate, welcome their friends to the cottages, they can spend a whole day here on their wedding day and the next day afterwards.
Right.
And we felt that was an article of faith because that's how I got married and all of my brothers and sisters got married in that way.
Right.
And we had this sort of idea on our weddings that what we would do is the next day, everyone's feeling a bit sort of, green around the gills, all go down to the lake, have a barbecue, jump in the lake and have a swim. That was the sort of the ideal for
Yes,
it.
yes.
And that's exactly what people do now. So it's great seeing them carrying it on.
Because you have, of course, you've got holiday accommodation here.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
the wedding party and guests can all stay
Absolutely,
on the
yeah,
estate.
yeah.
But then you're mentioning a swim here.
Yeah, so we've got the mill down there, and beyond it we have the mill pond and a lake beyond that. So the idea, it's all spring-fed lake, so it's very clean water, and people can all gather around, do whatever they want, and then jump in when they want to freshen up.
But it's such a pretty place to be married and also, of course, to live. I mean, this is the Cotswolds, just so idyllic,
Well-
picturesque Britishness.
Strangely,
Beautiful.
this part of the Cotswolds it's the folded valleys on the escarpment, so it's the lesser known part of the Cotswolds.
Sort of undiscovered Cotswolds.
Exactly.
Wonderful. Well, I think it's absolutely brilliant what you've done, and if I didn't have Mapperton, I'd recommend one of my children to be married here when the time comes.
Exactly.
Not for quite some time, I hope. Alpin Manor is a wonderful, wonderful wedding venue. It is so peaceful there. Thank you so much for joining me once again for this historic house visit. What a treat it has been. Before the end of my time at Alpin, I took a peek inside the beautiful church just behind the house and a focus of family life. One of the things I do love about manor houses like yours is that there's, as we've discussed, there's always a church.
The little church
Yeah.
stands behind the house, but it's also medieval of origin, but been completely rebuilt by the Victorians, except for the font, which was found being used as a cattle trough
Oh,
on the farm,
What?
and then they re-erected it, building this baptistry.
I was christened in this font.
no, were
Yeah.
you really?
I said, wasn't I? I think
Yes.
I was.
Oh my goodness.
4 out of
Trained
5
men.
children are married, yeah?
Wait, 4 to 5 of your children married here.
Yeah.
Hugo?
Yeah.
Yep. And wow, christened here as well?
Yeah.
My goodness.
So this part of the church, then it looks, I mean, it's very colourful.
And it says in the inscription, beautified with mosaics to the glory of God or something. In the 1887, isn't
Yes.
it? So they built quite a plain chancel before, and we got all this Italianate neo-Byzantine work, which is a
Fantastic.
kind of arts and crafts
Yes.
principle done by a man called Powell of Whitefriars. And it's full of colour.
Yes, full of colour.
Very
exactly.
richly textured church with wonderful stained glass everywhere. It's quite good quality of its period. Sunbursts on the roof.
Sunburst on the road.
So it's special. It's not what you expect, is it? A little
No,
country
no.
churchyard. It's described as the richest Edwardian Victorian interior in a Cotswold village.